Thanks everybody for coming to this reading and discussion. I appreciate Madhukanta Prabhu for hosting this event. So today we'll be reading from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and first we'll be reciting the sacred verse that Prabhupada used to recite. This is from the first canto, chapter 2, text number 4. I'll recite one line and you can all repeat after me. Recite one line, you can all repeat. Narayanam namaskritya, Narayanam namaskritya, Naram cheva narottamam, Naram cheva narottamam, Devim saraswatim vyasam, Devim saraswatim vyasam, Tato jayam mudirayet, Tato jayam mudirayet. One should utter the means of conquest, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2, to the Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Śrīla Vyasadeva, the author. There's another nice verse in canto number 1, chapter 2, text number 17. Śrīmad Svakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Ridantasto Yabadrani, Vidunodi Surit Satam. Translation by Śrīla Prabhupāda. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire from material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge for hearing his, Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So we will begin our reading today from chapter 1, text number 1. All translations, synonyms, and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Janmadyasa yatannayadi tarataschartisu abhignasvarat, Tene brahmaridaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayaham, Tejo varimridam yatavinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha, Damnasvena sadanirashta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi. Om, O my Lord, Namo, offering my obeisances, Bhagavate, unto the personality of Godhead, Vasudevaya, unto Vasudev, the son of Vasudeva, or Lord Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord, Janmadi, creation, sustenance, and destruction, Asya, of this manifested universes, Yato, from whom, Anvayad, directly, Itaratas, indirectly, Cha, and Artishu, purposes, Avignaha, fully cognizant, Svarat, fully independent, Tene, imparted, Brahma, the Vedic knowledge. Rida, by the hearty consciousness. Ya, one who. Adhikavaye, unto the original created being. Yat, about whom. Suraya, great sages and demigods. Tejo, fire. Vari, water. Mridam, earth. Yata, as much as. Vinimaya, action and reaction. Yatra, whereupon. Trisarga, three modes of creative faculties. Amrisha, almost factual. Dhamna, along with all transcendental paraphernalia. Svena, self-sufficiently. Sada, always. Nirasta, negation by absence. Kuhakam, illusion. Satyam, truth. Param, absolute. Dhimahi, do I meditate upon. Translation by Śrīla Prabhupāda. O my Lord Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I do offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I do meditate upon him because he is the absolute truth and is the primeval cause of all causes of this manifested universes. In the matter of creation, sustenance, and destruction, directly and indirectly, he is conscious of all different manifestations, but still is independent of any other cause beyond himself. It is he only who imparted first the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of the original living being, namely Brahmaji, and unto whom even the great sages and demigods become illusion, as much as there is illusory representation of water in the fire or land on the water, and so on. It is on account of him only the temporary manifestation of the material universes made by the reaction of the three modes of nature appears to be factual, although it is unreal. I do therefore meditate upon him who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world, and is therefore the absolute truth. Purport by His Divine Grace. Obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, directly indicates Lord Sri Krishna, who is the divine son of Vasudeva and Devaki. The fact will be more explicitly explained later in the text of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by the direct statement of the author in his assertion that Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and all others are either his direct or indirect plenary portions or portion of the portion. Srila Jiva Goswami has still more explicitly explained the subject matter in his Krishna Sandarbha, and Brahmaji, the original living being, has explained the subject of Sri Krishna substantially in his treatise called by the name Brahma Samhita. In the Samveda Upanishad, it is said also that Lord Sri Krishna is the divine son of Devaki. Therefore, in this prayer of the author, the first proposition is that Lord Sri Krishna is the primeval Lord, and if any transcendental nomenclature as to be understood of the absolute personality of Godhead, it must be the name as indicated by the word Krishna, the all-attractive. In the Bhagavad Gita, in many places, the Lord has affirmed himself as the original personality of Godhead. And it is confirmed by Arjuna with authorized statements of great sages like Narada, Vyasa, and many others. In the Padma Puranam also, Prabhas-kanda, it is said that out of the innumerable names of the Lord, the name of Krishna is the principal name. Therefore, although Vasudeva indicates the plenary portion of the personality of Godhead, in all the different forms of the Lord being identical with Vasudeva, indicated in this text, is principally meant to indicate the divine son of Vasudeva and Devaki, Sri Krishna, who is always meditated upon by the Paramamsas, or the most perfect of the renounced order of life. This Vasudeva, or Lord Sri Krishna, is the cause of all causes. Everything that be are all emanations from the Lord, and how it so happens will be explained in the later chapters of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This Bhagavad Puranam is described by the Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya as the spotless Puranam because it contains the transcendental narration of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. The history of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is also very glorious. It was compiled by Sri Vyasadeva on his mature experience of transcendental knowledge, under the instruction of Sri Naradaji, the spiritual master of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva compiled all the Vedic literatures, namely the 4 divisions of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutras, or the Brahma Sutras, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, etc. But yet, he was not delighted in his mind. This was observed by his spiritual master, and thus Narada advised him to write on the transcendental activities of the Lord Sri Krishna. The transcendental activities of Lord Sri Krishna is described specifically in the 10th canto of the book, which is considered to be the substance of this attempt. But in order to reach to the substance, one has to approach gradually by developed knowledge of the categories. Generally, a philosophical mind is inquisitive to know what is the origin of all creations. He sees at night on the sky and naturally thinks, what are the stars and how they are situated, who lives there, and so on. All these inquiries are quite natural for a human being because he has the developed consciousness than the animals. And to answer at once to such sincere inquirer, the author of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam says that the Lord is the origin of all creations. He is not only the creator, but also he is the maintainer of the cosmic situation, and he is also destroyer of them. The manifested cosmic nature is created at a certain period on the will of the Lord. It is maintained for some time, and then it is annihilated by his will. And as such, he is the supreme will behind all these activities. There are atheists of various categories who do not believe in the conception of a creator, but that is due to poor fund of knowledge only. The modern scientist has created a Sputnik, and by some arrangement or other, the Sputnik is thrown into the outer space to fly on for some time at the control of a scientist who is far away from the flying Sputniks. Similarly, all the universes with innumerable planets within them are similar to the Sputniks controlled by the best brain of the personality of Godhead. In the Vedic literatures, it is said that the absolute truth, personality of Godhead, is the chief amongst the living personalities. All living beings, beginning from the first created being, Brahmaji, down to the smallest ant, all of them are individual living beings. And above Brahmaji, there are many other living beings with individual capacities, and the personality of Godhead is also a similar living being, as individual as the other living beings. But the Supreme Lord, or the Supreme Living Being, has the highest brain with the supermost and inconceivable energies of different varieties. If a man's brain can produce a Sputnik, we can very easily imagine that brains higher than the man can produce similar other wonderful things far superior than the man-made Sputniks. A reasonable person will easily accept this argument, but there are stubborn obstinates who may not believe in this reasonable statements. But Śrīla Vyasadeva at once accepted the Supreme Brain as the Parameshvara. He proposes to offer his respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Brain, addressed as the Para, or the Parameshvara, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that Parameshvara is Sri Krishna, is admitted in the Bhagavad Gita, in all other scriptures delivered by Śrīla Vyasadeva, and specifically in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that there's no other Paratattva, summum bonum, than him. Therefore, the author at once worships the Paratattva, Sri Krishna, whose transcendental activities are described in the 10th canto. Unscrupulous persons go at once to the 10th canto, and especially to the 5 chapters where description of the Lord's rasa dance is kindly given. This portion of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the most conventional part of the great literature. Unless one has thoroughly accomplished himself in the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, one is sure to misunderstand the Lord's worshipable transcendental pastimes in the form of rasa dance and his love affairs with the gopis. The subject matter is highly spiritual technology, and only the liberated persons who have gradually attained to the stage of Paramahamsa, as referred to herein before, can transcendently relish worshipable rasa dance. Śrīla Vyasadeva, therefore, gives us the chance of gradual development of spiritual realization before one can actually relish the essence of the pastimes of the Lord. He therefore purposely invokes the Gayatri mantra, Dhimahi. This Gayatri mantra is meant for the spiritually advanced people. When one has attained success in the matter of chanting the Gayatri mantra, he can enter into the transcendental position of the Lord. One must therefore acquire the Brahmanical qualities or be perfectly situated in the quality of goodness of the modes of material nature in order to chant the Gayatri mantra successfully and then attain to the stage of transcendently realizing the Lord, his name, his fame, his qualities, etc. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the narration of the Swarupa of the Lord, manifested by his internal potency, and this potency is distinguished from the external potency, which has manifested the cosmic world, which is practically within our experience. Śrīla Vyasadeva makes a clear distinction between the two in this sloka. He says herewith that the manifested situation of internal potency is factual reality, whereas the external manifestive energy in the form of material existence is temporary and illusory, only like the mirage in the desert. In the mirage of the desert, there is no actual water. By interaction of some other thing, there is appearance of the water. Real water is somewhere else. Similarly, the man's festive cosmic creation is appearing like some reality, but the real reality of which this is but an imitation shadow only is somewhere else in the spiritual world, which is conspicuous by the absence of all affairs of the mirage. Absolute truth is there and not here. Here, everything is relative truth or one seemingly truth depending on something else. This cosmic creation is an interactory resultant of the three modes of nature, and the temporary manifestations are so created to present an illusion of reality to the bewildered mind of the conditioned soul, appearing as so many species of life, including the higher demigods like Brahma, Indra, Chandra, etc. In fact, there is no reality in the manifestive world, but it appears so on account of the real reality in the spiritual world, where the personality of Godhead exists, eternally exists, with his transcendental paraphernalia. I just want to make a few comments here. This is a very important explanation by Śrīla Vyasadeva of the position of the personality of Godhead. Śrīla Prabhupada in one lecture referred to his Guru Maharaj, His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, that one time he was in Bangladesh, or East Bengal, as it was called then, and he gave a lecture for 3 months, every single day, on this same verse of the Bhagavatam, the first verse of the first canto, first chapter. And Prabhupada explained that he described so many meanings of this transcendental verse. We see in the first chapter, in the first paragraph, that Prabhupada is explaining nicely, summarizing the position of Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Somebody recently sent me an email, and they were trying to get an explanation of the differences between the Gaudiya Sampradaya and the Madhva Sampradaya. Although we are called the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, there are some technical differences. And one of these differences is that the Gaudiya Sampradaya, we accept Lord Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead. Whereas the Madhva Sampradaya, they take it that Narayana is the original personality of Godhead and Krishna is an incarnation. Now, Prabhupada explains in so many words in the first 2 paragraphs here why Krishna is the personality of Godhead. In the Krishna Sandarbha of Srila Jiva Goswami, he gives a very elaborate explanation of all kinds of scriptural texts to prove the position of Lord Krishna based on that verse of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. There are so many explanations, and he explains very clearly and in considerable detail, analyzing every Sanskrit word of certain verses of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and other scriptures to show definitely our Lord Krishna is the personality of Godhead. On page number 73 in the 3rd paragraph, it is described by Śrīla Prabhupāda This Bhagavat Puranam is described by the Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya as the spotless Puranam because it contains the transcendental narration of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. This is a very important Sanskrit verse that Prabhupada used to quote. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam pramanam amalam. Amalam means spotless, pure, completely transcendental. And then Prabhupada goes on to explain the history of the compilation of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So this is a very sacred, transcendental, very special book. And all the purports here are very, very detailed, especially this first verse of the first chapter of the first canto. Śrīla Prabhupada is warning about the tendency of neophytes and sahajiyas to jump to the Rasa Lila in the 10th canto. Just the other day, I was reading a letter, an old article that Prabhupada wrote in the 1950s, where Prabhupada is describing that this Rasa Lila is not meant for the common man. One first has to become liberated from the influence of the modes of nature, and then he can understand the Rasa Lila. We were in Bihar in 1972 with Swami Guru Kripa, and in Ranchi, Bihar. This was sometime in November 1971. And one man was hosting a Rasa Lila party. He had invited many young women and many women to dance with so many guests. So they invited us to come there. So out of curiosity, we went there, and they asked us if we wanted to dance with any of the young women. And we said, no, this is not proper. You cannot imitate Krishna's dancing with the gopis. This is not suitable. This is not authorized. But foolish people think that they can imitate the activities of Krishna, and this is going to make them realize this is not the standard. Several places in the one letter, Prabhupada described that these activities, these descriptions of the Rasa Lila should not be published in the Back to Godhead magazine. Just yesterday, I had a discussion with a devotee, and we were discussing how some devotees are very fond of reading some of these esoteric Rasika literatures of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. And one of such literatures is called Govinda Lilamrita, written by Krishnadas Kaviraj, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. This particular book is a very detailed description of the activities of Radha Krishna 24 hours a day. Very confidential, very similar to the Rasa Lila. So there was one conversation where Śrīla Prabhupāda described how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur went to his father, Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and asked him that he wanted to publish the Govinda Lilamrita. And Prabhupada described that Bhaktivedanta Thakur replied to his son, yes, you can publish, but publish one copy only. In other words, this is not meant for publication. This is not meant for the public. One has to be advised, one has to be liberated on the platform of Paramamsa before he can appreciate these kind of literatures. But nowadays it has become popular for some class of devotees, of cheap devotees, sahajiyas, to jump to these kind of literatures thinking that they will be very, very advanced. In one of the writings of Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he described that this attempt to jump to the Rasa Lila in these kind of literatures without being self-realized or liberated is like a person who wants to grab the mango from the tree while the mango is still green, and he wants to grab the mango thinking, I've got the mango, now it is sweet. But it doesn't work like that. one will not be able to understand these exalted, esoteric, transcendental literatures by doing that in a neophyte stage. So this is a very important point. I believe we are on page number 75, the last paragraph in the bottom. Would somebody else like to read? Vishwakarma Prabhu, go ahead.
4. The chief engineer of complicated...
No. It says, Śrīla Vyasadeva therefore gives us the chance of gradual development. Page 75 in this book.
Oh, it's page 54 here.
Okay.
Venkat, is it the chief engineer of a complicated construction? Does not personally take part in the construction, but he is only...
Yeah, you're correct. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
But is he only
My
who
mistake.
knows all the nooks and corner of the construction, because everything is done by his direction only? He knows everything of the construction, both directly and indirectly. Similarly, the personality of Godhead, who is the supreme engineer of this cosmic creation, knows very well in the nook and corner of the cosmic creation, although the things are apparently done by someone else. Beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, nobody is independent in the matter of material creation, and everywhere where is the hand of the Supreme Lord. All material elements, as well as all spiritual sparks, are but emanations from him only, and whatever is created in this material world are but interactions of the two energies, material and spiritual, of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Vasudeva. A living entity called by the name chemist can manufacture water in the chemical laboratory by mixing hydrogen and oxygen gases, but in reality, the living entity works in the laboratory under the direction of the Supreme Lord, and the materials with which the chemist works are also supplied by the Lord. As such, the Lord knows everything directly and indirectly, and he is cognizant of all minute details of everything and is fully independent. He is compared with the mine of gold, and the cosmic creations in different forms are compared with the gold rings and the necklace, etc. The gold ring and the gold necklace are qualitatively one with the gold in the mine, but quantitatively, the gold in the mine and the gold in the earring or necklace are different. The whole philosophy of the absolute truth is thus simultaneously one and different. Nothing is absolutely equal with the absolute truth, but at the same time, nothing is independent of the absolute truth. Conditioned souls, beginning from the Brahma, the engineer of the particular universe, down to the insignificant ant, all are creating something, but none of them are independent of the Supreme Lord. The materialist wrongly thinks that there is no creator and save and accept his own good self. And this is called Maya, or illusion. On account of his poor fund of knowledge, the materialist cannot see beyond the purview of his imperfect senses, and thus he thinks that matter automatically takes its own shape without a conscious background. This is refuted here in the sloka of the Bhagavat by Śrīla Vyasadeva. who is a liberated soul, and he compiled this book of authority after his mature spiritual perfection. The complete whole, or the absolute truth, being the source of everything. Nothing is independent of the whole body. Any action and reaction on the body becomes cognizable fact to the embodied. Similarly, if the whole thing is the body of the absolute whole, nothing is unknown to the absolute directly or indirectly. Just a quick comment here. Being raised as a Roman Catholic myself, we were told that God is great. And we would see a picture of God sitting on the judgment stand like a Supreme Court judge. And he would have no face and no appearance of personality. So here Prabhupada is explaining how great God is in detail in this section of the Bhagavatam, in this first verse. How great God is in detail. Trevor, your mic is on. In the Shruti mantra, it is also stated that the absolute whole, or the Brahman, is the ultimate source of everything. Everything emanates from him, and everything is maintained by him. And at the end, everything enters into him only. That is the law of nature. In the Shruti mantra, also the same thing is confirmed. It is said there at the beginning of Brahma's millennium, the source from which everything emanates, and ultimately at the end of that millennium, the reservoir where everything enters into, is the absolute truth of Brahman. Material science haphazardly takes it for granted that the ultimate source of all the planetary system is the sun, but they are unable to explain as to the source of the sun. Herein, the ultimate source is explained. According to the Vedic literature, Brahma is the creator of this universe, and yet he had also to meditate upon to get inspiration from such creation. Therefore, Brahma, or the sun, is not the ultimate creator. It is stated here in this sloka that Brahma was taught the Vedic knowledge by the personality of Godhead. One may argue that Brahma is the original living being within this universe, and who could then give him inspiration, as there is no second being at that time. Here in this sloka, it is said that the Supreme Lord inspired the secondary creator Brahma, and then he could go on with the creative functions. As we have already mentioned above about the supervising engineer, the same thing is applicable in this example. The real brain behind all creative agent is the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna has personally admitted that it is he only who superintends over the creative energy, prakriti, or the sum total of matter. Sri Vyasadeva therefore worships neither Brahma nor the sun, but the Supreme Lord, who guides both Brahma and the sun in their different activities of creation. Oh, okay. Is Ram Raghava here in the group? Or how about Jeev Goswami? If you could please continue the reading.
In this sloka, the particular word avijna and swarat are significant. These two words distinguish the Lord from all other living entities. No living entity other than the Supreme Being, the Absolute Personality of Godhead, is either avijna or svarat. That is, none of them are either fully cognizant or fully independent. Everyone has to learn from the superior all about knowledge. Even Brahma, who was the first living being within this material world, has to meditate upon the Supreme Lord and to take help from him only to create. When Brahma or the sun cannot create anything without acquiring required knowledge from the superior, then what to speak of the material scientists who are fully dependent on so many things? Jagadish Chandra Bose, Isaac Newton, Professor Einstein, etc. of the modern scientists, who may be boastful of their respective creative energy, are also dependent on the Supreme Lords for so many things. After all, the respective highly intelligent brains of these gentlemen are certainly not the products of any human being. The brain is created by another agent other than the celebrated scientists as above mentioned. If the brains like that of Jagadish Bose or Isaac Newton could have been manufactured by any human being, then they would have produced many such brains instead of eulogizing the brains of the scientist. The scientists even could not manufacture a similar brain, and what to speak of other foolish atheists who defy the authority of the Lord. Even the Mayavadi impersonalists who flatter themselves to become the Lord are not even avijna or svarat. Such Mayavadi monists undergo a severe process of austerity and penances to acquire the required knowledge for becoming one with the Lord, but ultimately they become dependent on some rich follower who supplies them the requisite paraphernalia to conduct a great establishment in the shape of monastery and temples. An atheist like Ravan or Hiranyakashipu had to undergo severe type of penances before they could flout the authority of the Lord, and ultimately they were so much helpless that they could not save themselves when the Lord appeared before them as the cruel death. The same thing is applicable to the modern atheists, also who dare to flout the authority of the Lord. Such atheists will be dealt with similar awards as would mete out to the past great atheists like Ravan and Hiranyakashipu. History repeats itself, and as such, what was accorded in the past will act again and again whenever there is such necessity. Whenever there is negligence of the authority of the Lord, the penalty by the laws of nature is always there. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by the well-known maxim, Jada Jahi Dharmasya Glani. The Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead is all perfect. It is confirmed in all the Shruti mantras. It is said in the Shruti mantras that the all-perfect Lord threw a glance over the matter, and thus he created all living beings. The living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord, and he impregnates the vast material nature with the seeds of spiritual sparks, and thus the creative energies are set in motion for so many wonderful creations. One atheist friend argued that God is no more expert than the manufacturer of a subtle watch, which moves by the delicate machineries. We had to reply the atheist friend that God is still a greater mechanic than the watchmaker, in the sense that he creates one machine in duplicate male and female forms. The male and female forms of different grades of machinery go on producing innumerable quantities of similar machine without further attention of God. If a man could manufacture such set of duplicate machine to produce further machines without any attention of the original manufacturer, then of course a man could surpass the intelligence of God. But that is not possible. Each and every one of the imperfect machines had to be handled individually by the mechanic, and therefore nobody can be more intelligent or equally intelligent like God. God's another name is therefore called as the Asmordya. Nobody is equal or greater than him. Everybody has his equal number or somebody surpassing his intelligence, but nobody can claim that he has neither any equal nor higher than him. Param Satya, or the supreme truth, is he who has no equal or no any higher contemporary. This fact is corroborated in the Shruti mantras as follows. It is said that before the creation of the material universe, there was the Lord, who is the master of everyone. That Lord instructed Brahma about the Vedic knowledge. That personality of Godhead has to be obeyed in all respects. Anybody who wants to get rid of the material entangle must, therefore, surrender unto him. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita also. Unless one, therefore, surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is sure and certain that one must be bewildered, even if he happens to be a big brain. When the big brains surrender unto the lotus feet of Vasudeva, and know it fully that Lord Vasudeva is the cause of all causes, and is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, that only such big brain becomes a Mahatma or the broad-minded. But such broad-minded Mahatma is rarely seen. Only the Mahatmas, therefore, can understand that the Supreme Lord, who is absolute personality of Godhead, is the primeval cause of all creations. He is Parama, or ultimate truth, because all other truths are relatively dependent on him. And because he is the source of everyone's knowledge, he is omniscient, and for him there is no illusion, as it is for the relative knower. Would someone else like to read?
Some scholars of the Mayavadi school argue that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam was not compiled by Sri Vyasadeva, and some of them suggest that this book is a creation of modern age by somebody of the name Bhopadev. Śrīla Swami, in order to refute these meaningless arguments, says that there is reference of the Bhagavatam in many other oldest Puranas. The first sloka of the Bhagavatam is begun with Gayatri mantra, and there is reference of this in the Matsya Puranam, the oldest Puranam. In that Puranam, it is said with reference to the context of Gayatri mantra in the Bhagavatam that there are so many narrations of spiritual instructions beginning with the Gayatri mantra, and there is the history of Vritrasura. Anyone who hands over a charity of this great work on the full moon day attains to the highest perfection of life by going back to Godhead. Similarly, there is reference of this Bhagavatam in other Puranas also, where it is clearly said that the work is finished in 12 cantos and completed in 18,000 shlokas. In the Padma Puranam also, there is reference of the Bhagavatam during the conversation of Gautama and Maharaj Ambarish. The king was advised therein to read regularly Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam if he at all desired liberation from material bondage. Under the circumstances, there is no question brewing any sort of doubt regarding the authority of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Puranam. And later on, within 500 years from the present era, many erudite scholars and acharyas like Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Vallabhacharya, and many other distinguished scholars, even after the time of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, made elaborate commentations on the Bhagavad Puranam with unique scholarship, and the serious student will do well to make an attempt to go through them to relish more happily about the transcendental messages from the Bhagavatam. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur specifically deals in the original and pure sex psychology, Adirasa, devoid of all mundane inebriety. The whole material world is moving on the basic principle of sex life. In the modern setup of human civilization, the sex life is the central point of all activities. Wherever we may turn our face, we see a great prominence on the sex life. Therefore, sex life is not unreal. Its real reality is experience in the spiritual world. The material sex life is but a perverted reflection of the original fact. The original fact, therefore, is in the absolute truth, and as such, The absolute truth cannot be impersonal without any sense in the pure sex life. The impersonal monist philosophy has given an indirect impetus to the abominable mundane sex life because they have given too much stress on the impersonality of the ultimate truth. The result is that men with poor fund of knowledge have accepted the perverted sex life as all in all without any information of the actual spiritual form of sex. There is distinction of the sex life in the diseased condition of material life from that in the spiritual existence, and the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam will gradually elevate the unbiased reader to the highest perfectional stage of transcendence from the three modes of material activities, namely fruitive actions, speculative philosophy, and worshiping the functional deities as they are inculcated in the Vedic verses. It is stated as follows in the second shloka. Anybody has any comments or remarks or questions?
Yes, I do. I wanted to just at this last section, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu mentioned that everything that exists in the material world is here because it exists in the spiritual world, and the reality of the spiritual world is reflected in the material world diametrically opposite to the spiritual realm. And this mundane sex life that Prabhupada is speaking here is very profound, actually, because a lot of people want to think that God has no form, that God has no personality, and that that God is without relationship. He's a void. Prabhupada had come to specifically preach against voidism and impersonalism. And he so beautifully explains here how the material world, people are trying to imitate Krishna. That's their main business. So instead of accepting that we're the servants of the Lord, they want to be master of everything they perceive, everything that they do. And they want to imitate Krishna on especially on the level of being the transcendental paramour or lover. That Krishna is showing us that there is relationship on the transcendental level. And I think as men and women, we all experience going through life how we try to become the enjoyer in this material world, imitating Krishna. This is what these very Yaśodā Prabhu, these very rich people, like the Epstein group that was recently uncovered, with all these famous rich people involved in some form of perverted sex life. And this is there because everybody is trying to be Krishna, be the supreme enjoyer with this mundane body, this inferior machine. It is a very inferior machine, but under illusion, under the Maya, the force of Maya, we think we can enjoy, despite the fact that there's birth, death, disease, and old age. Despite the fact that we're constantly punished by our own body and mind, that we're under the punishment of other living entities, and we're under the punishment of the material nature, we still think that we can be the enjoyer. So this understanding, this was the Freudian understanding of the German philosopher. He also said that the whole world is motivated by sex desire. And this is the personification of illusion, that we want to be the supreme enjoyer. We start with this particular part of our life to enjoy mundane sex life. Look at Hollywood, Yaśodā. Hollywood, they project sex life as the be-all and end-all of everything. It's completely madness. And our whole society, the modern world, is gone completely, absolutely crazy. There is no question. Some people, I'll finish up. Some people, they're so occupied with government. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I'm this, I'm that. I'm a liberal. I'm conservative. This whole world is one big madhouse, everyone. It's craziness. From Hollywood to Washington to Moscow to India, everywhere, people are completely infatuated with the Kali Yuga principles of life. And it's going completely crazy. So, you know, hearing this today, Prabhu, and your beautiful reading is so inspiring. It just took me back in time to when we first got these books. Remember when we first joined the mission, Yaśodā, this is all we had. We managed to have a set of these Bhagavatams in the Hamilton Temple. We had a blue Gita, and we had these books. And these books that Prabhupada created in 62 and 64 and 65 were golden books for humanity. And you can see, brothers and sisters, despite the fact that Prabhupada had not started the Krishna movement as we know it today, he had this vision prior to 65 of what he was trying to say to the world. And we're so blessed that he was able to get on the boat with his trunks of books and come to America and deliver this literature to all of us systematically by the grace of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Shri Krishna. So it's such a great section of this literature that we're reading. And I personally feel very honored to be a part of the reading with our group here today at the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. Yaśodā, could you comment?
Well, this is a very important point with regards to the books. In the beginning, we didn't have the entire Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. There were very few books, and any devotee that came to the temple very seriously studied these literatures. Just like I pointed out, this was the 1968 Bhagavad Gita, abbreviated Bhagavad Gita, that was published by Collier Books in New York. And it had Prabhupada's purports, but it was not the big complete Bhagavad Gita, the 1972 complete edition. But devotees still relish that. We had the Ishopanishad. Ishopanishad was the 1969 Ishopanishad. We had this little booklet, Easy Journey to Other Planets. This was the 1959 version of the Easy Journey to Other Planets. And the thing is, when we read these books with attention, there are so many revelations that are coming out. There are so many deep points that are coming out. And if one very patiently hears there's a great benefit to this. There's a great transcendental benefit and cleansing that takes place. So it is very important for devotees to pay attention to this hearing process, because devotees sometimes feel, well, I've heard it before, or I've read that book before. That may be, but there are so many points of very deep realization. Just like we read one verse today, and there are so many points that have come up here, so many transcendental points that have been given by Śrīla Prabhupada. And the purports of Śrīla Prabhupada, I had the good fortune one time of watching Śrīla Prabhupada translate the Bhagavatam at night. And Prabhupada had a very big Sanskrit book. It's a huge Sanskrit book with all the commentaries on the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam of various acharyas. And what happened is basically he would take his tape recorder, he would read the commentaries of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his Guru Maharaj, the commentaries of Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Baladev Vidyabhusana, Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and so many other acharyas like Vallabhacharya and Ranga Ramanuja, so many great acharyas who have written commentations and purports on the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And he would distill the essence of these commentaries to present these books, because to understand the technical Sanskrit language is not easy. It's very difficult, especially for Westerners where we are not trained in technical Sanskrit. But Prabhupada had very elevated technical knowledge as well as very deep transcendental knowledge of Krishna. So these books are the product of Śrīla Prabhupada's service for years and years and years. And for those of you who do not know, I'm assuming everybody knows that Prabhupada only slept for 2 or 3 hours at night. He didn't sleep very much because he was so focused on getting these books out, to produce these books. It basically is the revelation of Krishna. There is a verse in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam where it's described that this Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the direct incarnation of Krishna. So this is it's described that now that Lord Krishna has departed for his abode, Krishna is present in the pages of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So anybody who's serious about understanding God, the position of the living entities, the position of the material world, and all the relationship with the living entities with God, can understand this from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Bhagavad Gita also, but Bhagavatam is very detailed, very, very detailed. So it is our good fortune that Prabhupada has left the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for us. It is up to us to take advantage and make spiritual advancement. Any remarks or comments? Or Abhiram Thakur Prabhu, I see you have raised your hand. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. I just see, like, from this last paragraph, it's all talking about differences. Well, it's just not that I'm really stressed about about sex life, but could you actually just describe with simple words, like, what's the distinction between the sex life in a diseased material condition and spiritual sex life?
Well, Prabhupada describes in many places in his books that in order to understand and to develop love of God, one has to be free from all material attraction. And the foremost disease in the material world is this illicit sex life. That's why one of the first promises that one makes at the time of initiation is not to engage in illicit sex life. If one is married, this is meant for procreation of children under restricted conditions, because this is the tendency in the material world. In the Manu Samhita, there is a verse that describes pravriti richa bhutanam nivritir tu mahafalam, that the tendency of every living beings in the material world is to engage in illicit activities. That is the tendency. But nivritirtu mahafalam, there's a much greater result, much greater benefit by engaging in restriction, by engaging in controlling these activities. Prabhupada one time described that this intoxication will ruin your country. There's a conversation in the Prabhupada conversation book that this intoxication will ruin your country. Another time he made a complaint that the fault of the modern system of education is to allow this free mixing of men and women, because this free mixing is not good for spiritual advancement. I think even the Muslims in countries, when they go to their mosque, they do not allow the men and women to mix. Even in the Indian temples, Hindu temples, they do not allow men and women to mix. There is restriction. So this is, in order to understand the spiritual sex life, or as described in the purports of the great acharyas, one is to elevate his consciousness beyond the bodily consciousness. Otherwise, one will misunderstand. It is described that if one hears the chapters of the Rasa Lila of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam with faith and respect, one will be cured of this roga, of this disease of lust in the heart. Because this is very deep. For millions of years, we've been conditioned with these very deep desires for material enjoyment. And by engaging practically in hearing from the pure devotee, one can become purified of this. This is the natural process. As far as the spiritual sex life, Prabhupada describes how there's intimate activities in the spiritual world, but it is not based on the basis of mundane lusts. I mean, Prabhupada has given the Krishna book where everything is described, so devotees can take advantage of it. But we see, if you talk to mundane people and they hear that Krishna had 16,000 wives, they cannot understand. Just like Prabhupada in one conversation, he described that during the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there was one priest who went to Vrindavan, and he was asking people, how do you explain that Krishna had 16,000 wives? And none of the Sahajiyas or the Goswamis could answer. Nobody could answer. They cannot explain the transcendental activities of Krishna. Because in order to understand these activities, one has to first understand who is Krishna. Unless somebody understands the activities, the transcendental nature of Krishna, one will misunderstand this great transcendental pastime. So this is just a synopsis of how Prabhupada explains things. I hope that helps. Jiva Goswami Prabhu, Hare Krishna, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I wanted to share a story that happened to me this morning. When I woke up this morning, I was looking forward to this class, but then I found out that my internet was not working. I didn't have internet, which means I can't come to class. And so I was pretty panicked about it. And I started to fervently pray to Śrīla Prabhupāda, to Lord Chaitanya, and to anybody I could think of to help me figure out how to get internet to go so I can go to this class. And so I was taking a nap before the class, and I was awakened in the middle of my nap with a voice in my head that said, restart your computer. Now, anybody that doesn't think that Śrīla Prabhupada interacts with us on everyday basis, anytime we call, I can tell you he does. That voice was Śrīla Prabhupada. Said, restart your computer. I did, and I could come to class.
Wow. Nice. Very nice. Any other remarks or questions or comments? Ram Raghava, you have comment? Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yes, I wanted to ask, for the benefit of those who are not as familiar with the philosophy as some other people are, could you explain the four regulative principles and how they are detrimental to the advancement of our spiritual consciousness?
Mr. Karma would like to comment on that.
Certainly. I have an interesting pastime too in that regards, Yasoda Prabhu. When I was getting initiated Ram Raghava in 1971 in July in Detroit, the temple room there on Jefferson Avenue was really packed with devotees. It was a very, I wish all of us had that opportunity these days to be in such a great transcendental atmosphere. With Prabhupada, he was sitting on a Vyasasana at the front of the temple beside the deity. It was quite majestic. And there was no room to really even sit. Everybody was there from all the temples in the area, from Detroit and from Toronto, from Buffalo, from Chicago, like that. So it was a great assembly of devotees. And Prabhupada, there were different people being initiated. Indradumna Swami was initiated that day. And a fellow named Gopal Bhatta was initiated that day. And Rochan was initiated that day with us. Uttama Shloka, myself. There was a large group of a contingency of devotees from Hamilton. Now, you have to realize that we didn't have any literature per se, as I mentioned earlier. So our knowledge of Krishna philosophy was very limited. Like, we had no idea who the demigods were, for example. And so when Prabhupada, they announced my name, oh, Bobby Hebert. And then Prabhupada called out my name, Vishwakarma Das. And then I went up, he goes, what are the four regulated principles? And I began to say them. No intoxication and no illicit sex life. He goes, that's enough. And he stopped me. And then he told me, he said, and everybody was cheering with the name. They thought, wow, what a great name. And like I said, I had no idea. For a couple of days, I didn't even know what it meant. I had to learn how to speak the name Vishwakarma. But Prabhupada said to me, he said, you should never think that you are the chief engineer. But you should always remember you're the servant of the servant of the servant of the chief engineer. And in this way, you'll become great. So that message is a message for all of us to always remain humble servants. So relating to your question specifically, the four regulated principles, for example, no meat eating, including fish and eggs, that destroys a person's ability to understand spiritual life because of the vikarmic reaction from it. It's a very contaminating activity in the mode of passion, very degraded. So Prabhupada was teaching us standards of human behavior and beginning with eating, how to eat properly. And of course, there's much more involved in Krishna consciousness because we offer our food before we eat it and it becomes prasadam. And Krishna does not accept the offerings of meat, fish or eggs. So no meat eating, no gambling. Again, mental speculation. People are involved in gambling, especially in the stock market, especially in business. throughout my life, I've been as a working in the karmi world. You're always speculating through this gambling tendency. I'm going to buy this building, then I'll sell it for $150,000 profit, or some other form. I'll buy a lottery ticket. I'll go to the casino. This is all part of the illusion of life. Just trying to somehow or other make money through gambling, through speculation, that you'll become the top of the ladder. You'll drive a Lamborghini or a Jaguar, or you'll have with money, you can have beautiful women. So like that, this mental speculation on gambling, always trying to get money, this will keep us degraded. Intoxications like that, complete taking shelter of material sense gratification in the form of intoxications, especially alcohol and drugs, where it obliterates our reality, and we cannot see clearly who we are and what we're doing. It's a cloud over our consciousness. And finally, illicit sex life. This illicit sex life, this is, as we discussed today, Prabhupada explained it, everyone moves under the spell of this animalistic tendency. For a man, he wants to be like the bull, the big bull moving in the field with so many women, so many female cows. So this is a very confusing, mundane state where we're trying to imitate Krishna through these material activities. So if one wants to make advancement in spiritual life, they have to rise above this platform of the four regulated principles. So Ram Raghava, it's really a training program to elevate, especially the Western man or woman. Because the Western society, I mean, you're from India and originally, you had a different upbringing. But for example, in my life, going through school in the Catholic religion, what did they start to, Venkat, what they would do was, and I still remember this in grade 8, I was dressed up in a suit and a tie, and I got to go to the school dance. In grade 8, you go to the school dance and you sit there. The girls sit at one side and the boys sit at the other side, and you're trying to figure out, do I have enough nerve to go ask this girl to dance? So the standard was much different than a place like India, where sex life was not allowed to become a part of the culture like it is here in the West. I'd come home from school, I'd watch American Bandstand. That was a dance program. And what were you doing? You were watching a boy and a girl dancing, boy and girl. All the movies, men and women, all the aspiration was to get money and meet a beautiful girl and get married and enjoy your life. So this standard of material life is based on these principles of sense gratification, intoxication, meat eating, gambling, and illicit sex life. So Prabhupada very carefully introduced this process to us to raise us up to the standard of Krishna conscious behavior, where we could begin to become students of the spiritual path, to go back to Godhead under his direction. Yaśodā, please.
There was one devotee in Los Angeles named Jai Gauranga. Jai Gauranga was an Hispanic devotee that was initiated in Mexico during Śrīla Prabhupāda's manifested presence. And he told me a story that after his initiation, Prabhupada told him to come up to his room in the Mexico temple. So they had the initiation ceremony, and everybody, Prabhupada explained the 10 offenses and the 4 regulative principles. And this devotee was in front of Śrīla Prabhupada. So Prabhupada took his bead bag in his hand and he dropped it on the desk. He said, and he told Jai Gauranga, you chant 16 rounds, that is good. But don't do like many devotees, they drop the chanting and then they do all nonsense all day. Don't do that. Prabhupada says one of the principles is no mental speculation. Because a lot of the problems that devotees run into is this speculation, this fabrication, this inventing, manufacturing different interpretations of what the philosophy means to fit into their personal agenda or their personal motivation or their personal plan. When Prabhupada says that one should not engage in illicit sex life, it's pretty clear. It's not very difficult to understand. I mean, if one wants to understand the details of the negative effects of engaging in these negative activities, all we have to do is read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, first canto, chapters 17 and 18, about how the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam came about, of Maharaj Parikshit being cursed by the young Brahmin boy Shringi. And then there's also the story of the black Shudra who was trying to beat a cow. And Prabhupada gives very detailed, elaborate explanation of what happens when people break down these regulative principles, the loss of mercy, the loss of truthfulness, the loss of kindness, so many side effects. In other words, these principles are meant to raise one from the animal platform to the spiritual platform. That's why Prabhupada warned after you drop the bead bag, he says, don't be like some devotees that chant 16 rounds and do nonsense all day. That is very dangerous. Another thing also is that we look at the structure of Prabhupada's preaching method. He introduced things very gradually. In the beginning, Prabhupada used to say, we're a kitchen religion. He used to cook the prasadam, cook the chapatis, and personally serve the devotees in 1966. Gradually, he trained devotees to cook. He trained devotees to do so many things. So the whole idea of following these principles is to elevate the consciousness from the lower modes of passion and ignorance to the mode of goodness. That's why, if you notice, any one of you who has attended an initiation or fire sacrifice ceremony, we always present that mantra, apavitra pavitrova, sarva vastam gatopiva. This is the mantra that Prabhupada explained at every fire sacrifice ceremony. That by remembering Lord Vishnu, yasmaret pundarikaksham sa bhaksya abhyantara suchihi. Suchihi means purified. That if one simply remembers the name of Lord Krishna, the name of Lord Vishnu, one would become purified externally and internally. So the whole idea of the regular principle is to keep pure, to keep on a level of the mode of goodness, and to desist, to elevate oneself away from the mode of passion and ignorance. I hope it helps.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
To both of you.
Any other remarks or questions? What do you think on the Bahya Mataji? What do you think?
She's having some distress right now, so she's not at the computer right now.
Oh, okay. Just that every time she's spoken in the past, she's always made very relevant and insightful comments. I guess it's part of your dynasty over there.
I will definitely pass that on to her. She's the one I learned from.
Very nice.
I wanted to, we're just coming to the end of the class, and I wanted to thank everyone for attending today. And just remind everyone that we are moving forward with a newsletter that'll be coming out within the next few days. And what we need from all of you is your list of email addresses so that we can build what's called a database of contacts. This is a very simple principle of networking. In life, there are many businesses. They're called network marketing businesses. And what you do in a network marketing business is you get what's called your warm list of contacts. And then you contact them. So in this particular situation, we are creating a master database. Now, this database is everybody's responsibility here at this group, please. It's not compulsory, but if you want to do something to help us to propagate this these programs, and also our Prabhupada TV, we're still waiting to get the exact name, Vinkat and I, but when we do get it, we will release that. And then all these programs that we're now having, we're also recording them. So they'll be part of our programming with the TV. And so that all of these wonderful realizations that we're sharing as a group will be shared with other people globally. Our goal is to develop a very large network of people that are receiving this information, just like it was delivered in the early 70s, the 60s. These particular classes, and I can say this from my own experience of being a devotee for 53 years, and I think all of us are feeling it, are very, very enlivening. I got a call from a Prakrita yesterday by chat, and he, in Montreal, he was one of our senior devotees, and he simply said, I find the classes very good. That's what he said. I find the classes very good. And today you heard Jiva Goswami. What was he saying, Vinkat? Oh, I was in a panic. My internet wouldn't work. I'm going to miss the class. And so I see that this type of enthusiasm for our classes can be spread to other people. And this will be a prolific, a viral development of what we're doing here to spread the mission of Śrīla Prabhupada with him as the guru, the Siksha Diksha guru of our group, as not like other groups. So please get your list together, okay? That's your email list. If you have 10 people, if you have 20 people, I know Yasoda maybe has 150 or 200 people. So if we get a database of 500 or 700 people, you can see what's going to happen. We're going to propagate and we'll infiltrate into the internet. It's a very hard vehicle to break. It's not easy to break it, but other people are doing it, and we can also do it with everybody's cooperation. So please get your email lists, send them to Ram Raghava, or you can send them to Vinkat, Vincott will be pooling them into a master list for for all our activities. So you can send it to both these people, and then we can utilize them effectively to expand our group. So that's a number one thing to do. Okay, I'm going to repeat it one more time. Please compile your email lists and send them over to Vincott. Vincott, if you want to put your email up, or how should we make you available?
Sure, I can type my email in the chat.
Maybe it's somehow or other you can. Okay, Ram Raghava already has it. Okay, perfect. So whoever thank you. So either to Ram Raghava or to Vincott or even to Madhu Kanta. But we're going to compile it into one list. And we've got, remember, the next class, unfortunately, is Wednesday night at 8 p.m. It's our Chaitanya Charitamrita class. It's a fantastic class, very enlivening as well. So all three classes are like a package of information for all of us to keep our devotional service going. Yaśodā, a last comment, please.
Thank you very much for this attempt to get more organized. I just want to make a brief comment. Prabhupada, in one initiation ceremony, I was told, he said asked somebody, what is the fifth regulative principle? And Prabhupada, chanting your 16 rounds is the fifth regulative principle. So just a little comment. I greatly appreciate everybody's participation. I realize that these discussions are very limited in scope. What we're going to try to do at some point in the future is have a couple of sessions that are going to be Ishtagoshti type discussion that we're going to moderate on certain specific topics. Because as we get preaching, for example, many times Prabhupada speaks about the soul and the next birth and next life, and we can have specific topics where we can discuss in full just on these specific topics, and we can mention the topic in advance so devotees can do a little bit of research or questions and bring up points that they have compiled or that they know, like that. So that make a very interesting discussion. Just like somebody brought up the differences between the Gaudiya Sampradaya and Madhva Sampradaya. And on one hand, it's simple. On the other hand, there's many, many literatures and many articles that would be very beneficial for devotees to hear and discuss and everything. So thanks, everybody, for participating. And Vishwakarma, you have a comment? No?
Who's doing, Ram Raghava, are you doing the moderation today?
No, it's Madhukanta Prabhu.
Oh, okay, Madhukanta, could you play the kirtan then?
Yes,
here?
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everybody. Hari Bol, glories to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Madhukanta.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare
Panchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.